Hi, so I just want to take a moment of your time and talk about the African American plight in America, on racism, on nonviolence, and on criminal cases and white privilege, and how all of that relates to Catholic social teaching and how we've talked about it in class. So if I keep looking down at my notes. So the first thing I want to talk about is when I started out the essay, I basically was saying that racism wasn't dead and that African Americans are incarcerated 5 times more than Caucasians or any other race really, and it's for petty crimes or for nonviolent crimes or first offenses. And so the NAACP is the organization that I chose, and I implemented that into my essay by talking about how they contribute to solving this problem and how they contribute to um, helping us build the blocks to get rid of this problem of racism. And one thing that they do is they post a lot of verdicts about what particular case is going on with, like, maybe say the most recent police brutality incident. They post updates on that. They post articles about how you can stay educated on being black in America, or how to de-escalate some situations that may or may not, that could have been avoided really, if we had gone about it a different way. And if, say for instance, your kid gets into a scuffle with the law, then they can provide lawyers for you and a defense team to help you through that time. I go on to talk about how racism represents itself, because a lot of people think that it's either gone or it's just like, oh, it's not a big deal, and that the truth of the matter is that it's still a huge deal and it's still a very real thing, and it's something that's reformed itself to now what we call colorblindness. And there was a book written called The Central Frames of Colorblindness, of colorblind racism. And that's literally a different form of racism, where there are things where you say, oh, this is just natural, this is what our history is, this is just how it's supposed to be, this is natural, that black people or anybody other than the Caucasian people should be treated this way, and this is just how life goes, just get used to it, get over it, basically. That's another form of racism. I go on to talk about how a connection to our class, which would be civil engagement. Like, I've noticed nowadays that when things start to get out of hand when it comes to law or some minority or something like that, everybody pulls out their phone. Nobody really goes and tries to help the person out anymore. Everybody's on their phone. Everybody's recording. So this is a push for civil engagement, which is part of something we talked about in class. Another part that I'm going to talk about is racism in itself, which we talked about in week 7, about racism in general and what that looks like and how we can, how it affects different groups of people and different people's views of racism. And then I'm going to talk about nonviolence. I really feel like sometimes the police take it too far. I feel like there were different ways to handle the situation. If they were resisting arrest, you have to shoot them X amount of times because you tased them or done other things. And then from my point of view, looking out, I see other people getting treated with a different level of respect than what we get treated as. I've seen people that shot up schools get walked out of church or schools, whoever they shot up. I see them getting walked out of the place, and we're more likely to get shot in the place and killed in the place, or we get dragged out of wherever we were. And I think that we can, if we could just level the playing field and learn how to make equality across the board, not just for a particular set of people, or more likely for a particular set of people, it would be great. And then go on to talk about white privilege and how that plays a part in all of it, and how whenever we talk about white privilege, we're not saying that white people are wrong for it, we're just saying that you should know that, we're saying that white people should know that you have it, that they have it, that it's a thing that is very real and very, very true. And we're not trying to call white people racist or any other people racist. We're just saying that this is what it is, and this is how we deal with it. I then go on to talk about how racism is considered wrong in the basis of Catholic social teaching. So one of the things that Catholic social teaching talks about, human dignity and the option for the poor and vulnerable. And for the human dignity one, it's really just about the fact that everybody is the same in God's eyes, so why is it that we have to treat people differently based on the color of their skin? And then for the option for the poor and vulnerable, if you see your brother or your sister, which really means anybody walking around here that needs some help and that they're more prone to certain things, help them out and don't just stand there and do nothing, or just kind of go about your day. Like, help them out if you can. Then go on to talk about why it's important to me, and I think it's pretty obvious if you're watching this video why it's important to me. It's because I go through this on a daily basis. It's something that I deal with and I struggle with year in, year out, and I just thought it would be a really cool topic to write about and have some people kind of learn some different things about why we may act the way we do, or why we may or may not talk about this a lot. I then go on to talk about how I am in no way saying that it's just like white people's fault. I am not saying that at all. I think when I had my peer evaluation, she kind of told me, she's like, I kind of feel like you're attacking us. I'm not trying to attack you at all. In fact, I have like a whole segment in my paper where I'm saying it's not just white people. It's our fault too. We have there's a reason why this is still happening, and we're kind of allowing it to happen because we're not in change anymore. We have some ways to kind of get this out in the open and how to change some stereotypes and change some things that are just pre-assumed about us. And we can do it if we would change some of our behavior. So I really believe it's a two-way street in order to get this thing obliterated and get it out of America's history. Like, let's not keep repeating history. Then I go on to how we can change as a people and how we can help and kind of put out a little dent in getting rid of racism. A good thing would just be to really just communicate where you are. I think that a lot of it has to do with just the fact that if nobody knows how you feel about a certain thing, we can't change it. If we're not able to acknowledge it, you can't change it. And trying to argue with someone isn't gonna help much. And the reason I decided to write to Dr. Trump. The reason why I decided to write to President Trump is because I feel like since he's the leader of our country, if we can shift his thinking, other people will start to follow and shift their thinking, since he's our president. And I intended for my letter to kind of spark some compassion in him. Like, this is what not only me, but a lot of African Americans go through on a daily basis. One thing I learned a lot when I was doing this project was the fact that we can actually make some change. Like, I think in the back of my head I always had, oh yeah, we can make stuff happen, but I didn't really understand how we can really bond together as African Americans and bond together as people in general in America and make things happen. So that's one huge thing that I learned, that we can really affect change and really start a movement that will change the course of America and can change how we view racism in other people. And we just have to willingly be open enough to expose parts of ourselves that may or may not be comfortable or may not be something that we want to keep revisiting. But in order to make some change, you have to revisit those places. And I really just wanted to end this video on a quote from Nelson Mandela, and I think everybody's heard it, but it literally says, no one is born hating another person for their skin because of the color of their skin or their religion. People are taught to hate. If they can be taught to hate, they can be taught to love, because love comes more naturally to the heart than its opposite. Thanks.